Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, author of Visualizing Happiness in Every Area of Your Life and host of this podcast, Incredible Life Creator. And today I have with me Debra Blackman. Hey, Deborah.
Hi, Dr. Kimberley. Lovely to be here. Thank you.
Yes, and that lovely accent all the way from UK. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, very British.
yes. So, just so people can know you, I'm going to go ahead and read your bio. So, Deborah Blackman is a maverick, a different thinker, and disruptor, challenging traditional business systems and beliefs with a heart centered approach, proving there is a new business model based on on the sphere that celebrates difference, where every person matters, where every voice is heard, and every opinion counts. An abuse and trauma survivor from a wealthy family with all the trappings money can buy, but who lived in fear behind closed doors, who had a breakdown and a rebirth, and whose sole purpose is to empower everyday people to be the heroes of their own life. All right, we'd like to hear about all this. So tell us your story.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? You just read that, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that really is me. The journey has been challenging, but I'm at a place now where it doesn't define me, but I'm actually grateful that it happened. It wasn't right what happened to me as a child, but it's great that it happened because I wouldn't be the person sat before you today without that experience. So, to touch upon the early years, both of my parents that I now realize, because as a child don't have a reference point, they both suffered from mental illness. And so that means that I believe in their family backgrounds as too, they would have experienced, I think, generational trauma. They were two people that had had their younger years, and my father was conscripted in the war, the Second World War. So we can only imagine the horrors and the whole trauma that was around that generation. Doesn't make it right, but it happened. And so I was a very sweet little girl, always trying to not be seen, not be heard, with invisibility as my armor, because I tried to make sure that I wasn't in the spotlight. I went to school. I was educated at a convent school, and then I went on to a prestigious British school where it was a very high fee paying school. And the tragedy is that people could have probably seen that I wasn't right, that I was very thin, that when I changed for my sports activities, there were various marks on my body, and I was very withdrawn, all the classic symptoms of somebody who's suffering abuse. But for whatever reason, and this was a long time ago, it wasn't picked up on. Nothing was actually ever said. My parents being people who had a well-respected place in the local community, they were considered to be leaders, and that money kind of buys silence, I think. So that was that. And one thing that I loved was being out in nature. And I was very fortunate that I had animals and ponies and horses that, although that sounds like privilege, they were really my lifeline. And I've always had an affinity with animals ever since. And so at the age of 17, I had been locked out of the house by my parents. I can't remember the misdemeanor that I was meant to have perpetrated, but that left me being homeless for a couple of years. I lived on people's sofas and the goodwill of their parents. So I went through my last year of education, basically living off people's goodwill without a penny to my name and the clothes I stood up in, having not been allowed back into my own family home. Which, to be honest with you, at that age, I just thought, I've just got to get through this. It was deeply traumatic. I stored most of it within my body, my mind, but there was no other option than to get on with it. And I did. And I remember my first job after finishing school. I'd gone through, I don't know in the States if they have them now, but the Yellow Pages is a directory of lots of business numbers in. And I started at A and I rang and said, literally, I'm a young person. I'm eager to have work and earn an income and contribute. I remember it now. Have you got any vacancies? To which, until I got to the local borough council, which was B, so I didn't have to go very far down the alphabet, Somebody said, well, actually, there's a job here in the finance department, and you sound like somebody who could really do that. So off I went for my first interview, and I got the job. I think more by sheer willpower than anything else. And I started off with the borough council. And what that did was give me some independence, because the first time in my life I was earning my own money. And that meant that I could save up to rent a property, which I duly did. So at 19, I was very much my own person, which was wonderful. Then a man stepped into my life. He was a wonderful gentleman. In fact, he was an American. He was in the American services in the UK. And we got married. And I have to say, I got married for the wrong reasons. I wanted a roof over my head and I wanted security, which, you know what, I'm compassionate to myself now, because I couldn't think of what else to do other than rest within the comfort of his protection. He was wonderful, absolutely fantastic. I've got every love for him in my heart still. He wanted me to live in his hometown in Atlanta, in Georgia, but I hadn't got over my issues. So after about a year living there, I felt very homesick for the UK and I came back on my own. And then it dawned on me, I wanted to try and get back with my parents. That wasn't particularly fruitful. And so from then on until they passed away, it was a very fractious and difficult relationship. Clouded all of my relationships since then, and I've unfortunately been put in hospital by men who have beaten me. I went round to attract the abuse that I had in the past from trauma bonding. It's not nice, but it happened. And it was a journey that my soul, I do believe, actually had chosen to actually experience. That's up to anybody. If you have a different view, I completely understand, but that's how I've rationalized things. And so from there, because I was always hypervigilant, really strong-minded, I got a job in finance again, and I was in a wonderful bank. I rose to a significantly high level there, and I got a very big deal in. I was working in London, and the deal was sizable. It was hundreds of millions of pounds, and that got me noticed by an international operational management consultant that was based in the States but with a global footprint. And that's when I learned all about natural resources, oil and gas, more into finance, etc. And my job, because I've always been good at relationship development and building, and the business area of it too, in the administration, I started to sell in projects of about £4.5 million upwards, and that was successful. Got headhunted again by a big company, big conglomerate, and oh, I thought my life was set then, that was fine. But unfortunately, I was putting myself in a very many different personas to be able to cope with everything. And it got very, very stressful. And when they told me that they were going to make all of our team redundant, it was the straw on the camel's back, and I had a nervous breakdown. The best thing that ever happened to me. And I
Oh,
know that might sound, yeah, counterintuitive. I was able to take that complete breakdown and build up from the very foundations right the way back up again, because I've been putting sticking plasters, I don't know if you have them in the States, you know, band-aids around all the cracks that formed in my life, pretending that everything was all right. And I don't know, again, in the States, I think you probably had it, Rubik's Cube, you know, all of the different things. My thing was that I had more faces than a Rubik's Cube. Everything was to do with a coping mechanism, and I didn't know who I was. So that breakdown helped me through therapy to actually say, this is me, in the stillness of what that created. And that's when God entered into my life. I might call it the source or the inner light, my higher power, but I know that there was divine intervention. And since then, life has been absolutely magical. Not without its challenges, not without its tribulations, but now I can see why things happen, and why I've got this wonderful purpose, as you say, to make everyday people know that they're incredibly special, that they have vision, purpose, that we're loved, each and every one of us in this world. And that's what's given me my voice. I found it. Now I can't shut up. To actually spread that around the world within my business and within podcasts as well, to just make sure that people who have challenges, or even if you haven't really, that we've all got this wonderful purpose and that life is definitely worth living.
I love that. And that's really what this podcast is about. is people knowing that they're important, that they're loved, and that they have gifts that we all want to, share with them. So, and that they, they have a purpose and a reason for being here. So, thank you for that, and thank you for being here. And that is quite a journey, because so many people think that in a privileged household things don't happen, but a privileged or wealthy household is no different than any other household. I had a friend in college who, they were very wealthy, and him and his mother and his brother got beaten almost every day, physically beaten, but in out in public, everything looked perfect, but it wasn't. So, and I know there's other people, dealing with that or something similar. Um, if you could have said something to your young self going through that, like if you were to advise someone, what would you tell them?
It's a very good question, and I can only speak from my perspective, because at the end of the day, that's all we have is how we are viewing the world ourselves. So to my younger self, I would say categorically that I was loved, that I was cherished, that I was looked after, that I was okay as I was, that wonderful little girl, and to shine her light brightly and know that at the end of everything, she will succeed. She will be the person that she was always meant to be. And this is just a journey. This is a life, and it's a lesson. And to know that there's always hope and light coming and beckoning towards us, but absolutely primarily that little girl, that little Deborah, was loved,
Mhm.
because I speak to her every day and tell her as much, and she knows it now, which is great.
That is so beautiful. And also, as a teenager, basically, you had the boldness to get the yellow pages out and just keep calling. I mean, that's persistent. That's dedication, determination. Where did that come from?
Well, you see, now I know that that was divine inspiration. That wasn't something that, in the moments of my life where I've needed it the most, a wonderful God has stepped in and taken over. And I've been the vessel for that to happen. And it's in that moment that you get the clarity, that you get the strength, that you get the will and the desire, where no is not an option, where not trying is not an option, where you just have to get up there and go do it. However scary, however frightening, however we feel, I can't do this. Actually, you can and you will, because there's a way out of it. And so I think in those moments, that divine inspiration gave me the creativity and the resilience to go ahead and go, you know what? I need a job. How am I going to get a job? Well, there's the yellow pages, and it was in front of me. And in some cases, sometimes, and I've been guilty of this in the past, I've looked an opportunity right in the face and I've not seen it. And I think that, with the clarity, and that the fact is that I will always be looked after. I have always been looked after, and I'm being looked after in this present moment, is to allow that creativity, allow that voice. If we might not identify with God, we might call it our higher power, we might call it the source, we might call it gumption and grit, whatever we call it, however we identify it with, just let it in and let it work its magic. Because I can't say for anybody else, but for my own purpose, when I surrender, when I let myself just go and be that vessel, that's when the magic happens. That's when miracles start to be, when things manifest and you go, how did that happen? It's because For me, I've let that divine light, that inspiration into my heart, and I've acted without resistance to what it wasn't even telling me. It was, I've got to do this. And it works at lightning speed. And so from that teenager, I mean, I look back at that time and I just think, oh my goodness, that was a pretty big thing to do. But at the time, it just felt so natural. And it just felt, I'm going to get a job and this is how I'm going to get it. And I did. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So, talk about your faith. How did you find God? How did that change everything?
Well, the wonderful thing is, God had been talking to me for years, but I hadn't been listening.
Mhm.
Yeah. Every now and again, when God knew that Deborah needed help, God would come in and do it. But of course, I would say that was me. I did that. I got through that. Well, good for me. And when the breakdown happened, I actually came face to face with my essence. Now, that was actually a transcendental moment. That was a divine moment because I didn't know who I was. To be faced in that void, in that nothingness, and knowing that that was the essence of myself. That was the personality of my seed. That was the fractal of the universe that I was so mind expanding, so mind blowing that I knew at that moment that that was God. And I'm not being blasphemous when I say that that was God and it was inside me, physical entity in my heart, in my being, in my essence. So now I realize, and again, I'm not being arrogant, but we're all made in the image of God because God is within us. So then everything started to click into place. And the experiences where I've always been sat in victimhood, and as I say, I don't say what happened to me by perpetrators, of which there have been many. I don't say it was the right thing to do, but I have been able to forgive. And if I can say to anybody out there, sometimes, who am I? The troubles and tribulations that I've had in my life are insignificant in comparison to a lot of people in this world. And my heart goes out genuinely in prayer and love to those people who are suffering and those children who are suffering and any sentient being that is suffering. But you know what? Sometimes things happen for the reasons that we just can't comprehend until we do comprehend them. And I was the only person to be the loser if I didn't forgive, if I didn't lift the burden from myself because it was a crushing weight on me. And when I found the divine inspiration to forgive, not just in lip service, but in my heart, in my soul, the people that had done things that were not right, there was a huge freedom and liberation and outpouring of love because I realized we're all one, we're all together, we're all completely enmeshed in life with each other. And I was just a part of that as anybody else. So the loneliness that I felt, the isolation that I felt, the guilt, the shame, all of that, I felt that I had a place in the world as part of humanity. And that I knew I would never be alone again, that I knew that I was part of something incredible and enormous. And that would be the message that I would have to people, is that we're not on our own, that we have the beautiful brethren and sisterhood of humanity to make us completely at one with everything, nature, machines, us, you, Dr. Kimberley, all these wonderful listeners. We are all energetically linked together in this wonderful world, into the universe, and the universe is beyond it. Now that's pretty cool. That's amazing. So I can't quite remember what your question was.
That that's pretty cool. So well said. So well said. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, you had the breakdown, you had this rebirth. So, what happens after the rebirth? So, obviously, you weren't working during the breakdown because you had just lost your position because been redundant. So, what happened? How did you get back to life again?
Right. Well, the interesting thing, I was working. I
Uh-huh.
got made redundant. And again, divine inspiration, I set up my business
Ah,
in the presence of a nervous breakdown.
you're
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, trust me, trust me. So I set up the element of what I do, which is the essentially limited. You're Mary Poppins of the office. We help people buy back their time. We're virtual outsourcing business, and now I'm training and coaching and helping people do podcasts to get their voice out because it's such a great platform. But the great thing is with that is it stopped me from going into the rabbit hole of a downward spiral because I had to be okay in the sense of carrying on, carrying on. And as difficult and as burdensome, and sometimes I just thought, what's the point? My therapist saved me from suicide because the shift in my being, this complete collapse, brought this pointless feeling to me. So she helped me absolutely undeniably. She was my angel. She helped me through that. And I helped myself through it because, of course, it doesn't happen unless the person that wants to change changes.
Mhm.
And so working through that breakdown allowed me the opportunity to see things in different ways. The therapy sessions lasted for about 8 weeks, and they could have been an equivalent of about 80 years. I mean, the amount that I learned in that time was incredible. And it set me off on a journey of self discovery. And I think that there are many sages, very wise people in the world that have been and will be and are now, that say the journey to love is to know yourself. The journey to happiness and freedom is to know everything about yourself and to love yourself because of the faults, because of the weaknesses, the warts and all. Love the good, the bad, the middle bits, and all of it, because that makes us what we are. And yes, we can always improve, but at the end of the day, we are intrinsically standing in our own essence. And what sometimes we perceive as truth actually isn't. It's a perception of reality that we've got as a construct. And if it serves us, well, fair enough. But if it doesn't serve us and keeps on pushing us down a route where we feel troubled, where we feel anxious and we feel afraid, there's another way to think, to be, to feel, to have. And that's an incredible choice. And so I'm much more discerning now in the things because of the breakdown, working through it, and be conscious of my own self in this. That now, instead of flying off the handle with something or being triggered because it formed something in my past, I can ask it the question, thank you for being here. What are you trying to teach me?
Mm.
And that is so valuable because now I'm not just this maelstrom of emotion. I can actually, to the large extent, pick and choose what I want to experience and how I want to experience it and the degree of how I want to experience it and the time frame.
Mm.
Whereas something might set me off for a couple of months and I feel very depressed and I wouldn't eat because that's kind of like my default position. If I'm not happy, I don't eat. Now I go, okay, well, that's very interesting. Thank you for the lesson. What are you trying to teach me? I embrace you. Thank you. And weirdly enough, when I try and analyze it, it kind of just dissolves. It might not be in a day, just recently, it took a couple of weeks, but that sure beats a couple of months or 2 years or 20 years of this feeling. So, anybody out there who's on a journey that feels that they get triggered or they fly off the handle for seemingly no reason, there's kind of always a reason behind something. So, it's sitting there and understanding and where we feel it, where we're experiencing this thought or this feeling, and working with it and sitting with it and being uncomfortable in it. Because I know when I go to the gym, and I've been for a while,
Mhm.
but when I do, and you were talking about working out in the pool, if we haven't been for a while, our muscles are tired and they ache, but that doesn't stop us from going back and doing it again.
Mhm.
because we've got a purpose. We want to achieve something. And that's exactly how I relate to working on myself, is developing those muscles. And you know what? It's going to hurt. It's not going to be a walk in the park. But when we can get through that, I know that I can build resilience and understanding of what I'm going through, so that the next time it's actually a better experience, until the point where things like that don't actually come up in the same way again, and that they've kind of just dissolved forever. And then you go up another level, and then there's another devil. But that's great, because we've all got to, in my mind, keep growing until we have our last breath on this planet. Keep growing and understanding that actually we can actually be more. We can experience more through these experiences, and they don't necessarily have to be bad for us to value them. So yeah.
Yes, thank you. Now, I know because I've talked to you, before this podcast, that you are very passionate about your work and what you do. And, why is it really important to have that passion and just to have fun with what you're doing?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Now, fun. You see, when I didn't have fun, I realized when we're children, we have really good fun. And it's that childlike curiosity. I'd say curiosity is one of the big things in life, to be really inquisitive about things with an open mind, and everything is like, wow. And as we get older, things start to get a little bit kind of war weary, and we're a bit tarnished, and we take things for granted. So the passion in what I have, and I have a real drive, is to again help people through the work that we do, through the outsourcing work, to buy back their time so that they can use that in a way that's going to benefit themselves, their businesses, their ecosystems, their families. Well, why wouldn't I be passionate about that? Because that's such a beautiful gift to somebody, because we've got our health and we've got our time, and both are very much interlinked. So if you use time wisely, you can do amazing things. But if you let time run away with you, you can feel overwhelmed, disenchanted, disenfranchised, because our view of everything has changed. So time is those wonderful quality. It's not necessarily linear time. It's the way in which we go back and forth, and present and future, and where we are in the middle. But if we can help people buy back their time, and now help them have a voice on podcasting as well, well, that's such a true gift to give to people. And it fills me with, as you can probably see, it fills me with so much pride in the right way, and passion to serve others. And having through the nervous breakdown, before the breakdown, it was all me, me, me. And now it's all we. And there's a big difference. It's, how can I help? How can I be of service? How can I contribute? How can I add value? What do I do with my team, and for us to add purpose to people? And it's just a different way, a wonderful way of looking at the world. So yeah, that's what I say, is that passion, having fun, enjoying life, not taking things too seriously, and really doing it with love in our hearts and joy in our hearts. And that's kind of cool. That's just living life and with a smile on your face, genuinely.
Yes. And, you do what you're saying, the we, because I was actually on a training, and you were on the same training. Um, and you were so encouraging to the person doing the training. You were encouraging to the other people on the training. So, thank you for being that encourager and uplifter.
Oh, thank you. I really take that as a huge compliment. Thank you so much. Um, I think some of it stems from the childhood of people pleasing, which is not really very healthy. But now I've learned to set boundaries, because I value myself. I love myself as to who I am, and it's growing all the time. It will never be perfect, but I do intrinsically understand that I'm a great, wonderful, beautiful human being. And that means I can give so much more and experience that in others, without feeling that, oh, I don't want them better than me, because then I won't get what I want. Actually, we can all lift each other up, and then we can make a real difference if we're lifting each other up. And I've been in environments, in companies, where you didn't want to go away for your 2 weeks holiday, because you'd be worried that somebody was going to steal your clients, or They were going to say things in the office about you behind your back. Well, yeah, okay, but really, wouldn't it be better if you went away on holiday and knew that you had a team supporting you, that your clients were going to be well cared for, and at the end of it, you've gone up a couple of levels? I think that's the gift that I can give to the world, is to help people to strive to be their best as well.
Yes. Thank you. So I'd like to know more about what you're doing. You said giving people back their time, but what specifically does your company do?
Ah, well, yes, indeed. Well, we help people in four separate ways really, really well. One of them is administration. And often when we go into business or we have a busy job, we didn't really do it to be administrators. We did it to be the doctor, or we did it to be the salesperson or the engineer. And with the background stuff that goes on, sometimes that can become a bit overwhelming. And if we find it difficult to actually do the core things in our world and our business that really are going to make the difference. So we take that shoulder off, and we take that burden off of people. So we act as if we were your Mary Poppins. That's my little tagline. You can just see it up there.
Mhm.
And we come in and we help out and we make everything okay. And then the other thing that we do is business development, because I've been involved in that all of my career. We do that through LinkedIn, and now we're doing it through podcasting, from profitable podcasting. And that is all about reaching out to those people that our clients want us to have a relationship with for their business, in a very non-sales driven way, but with genuine interest and love in our hearts, as to say, how can we serve through our clients' perspective? And then we do social media content creation and management. So again, we might go into business, but one of the things is we probably didn't think that we'd have to be sitting down for an hour every night writing all of our LinkedIn copy or putting everything on Facebook. And it might not be the thing that really sets us on fire. We'd like to do the thing that we're good at, and that might not be it. So we take all of that on for people as well, and we manage all the responses for people too, in an authentic and in the voice of the client. And now, fourthly, what we do is we help people with all the management and the production of their podcasts. And I also help to train people on the podcasts so that they can find a voice, get out to reach their potential clients, and actually have a stream of income that they probably hadn't actually thought would be able to come from actually having a podcast and having it on air. So that's what we do. Those are the four things that we do very, very well.
All right. Yeah. And those are definitely needed things because I know I'm a person that I like to be involved in, more than one business at a time, even. And that support is just really, really important for people because you can really get into the weeds with all that stuff. And you're thinking, and then your creativity goes away because it's almost like two sides. Like there's a creative side, and then there's the admin side that is it can still be creative, but it's to a creative person who wants to be in their mind creating new things all the time. That's just like, oh, that's stuff I got to do.
Mm, yeah. And you know what? If you do it at the expense of something where you know it's going to drive your business forward, you're actually losing your impetus, you're losing your profitability. So actually it becomes pretty serious, because let's say, for instance, is a sales environment, the more people that you meet, the more type of business that you're going to close, the more people you can help. But if you've then got to do interminable reports and put things on spreadsheets and find out all of your diary and do all of your inbox and find that, you've just got a sea of things that you haven't got back to, then all of a sudden you're going to think, well, I'm not actually helping more people with my role as a salesperson. I've become a glorified administrator, which is not why I wanted the job. So ultimately,
Mhm.
we take that off, and it can be really, really helpful for people, because it gives the time back to use in whichever way they wish. And some business owners like to have some time out. They might do their workout. They might be able to put the kids to bed. They might be able to have some quality time with their other half. It could be to cook a decent meal rather than having takeout or not very healthy food. Whatever it is that they decide that they want to take in that time, I'd always say use that extra time wisely, because time well spent is a blessing. And
Mhm.
so that's what we say. It's very rare that you can buy back time, because once it's gone, it's gone. But this way you can leverage it.
Yeah. So, do you have any stories of clients? Of course, you won't use names, but any stories of clients where um, they were kind of overwhelmed with other stuff and they came to you and now even life has changed. Any stories like that you can share?
Oh, I've got quite a few actually, surprisingly, yeah. Um, there was one lady, sales director of a big company, and she travels a lot for her work. She'd amassed 3,552 emails in her inbox. Mhm. So, two small children, a very busy household, and this was literally really getting her down because she didn't know in that 3,552 emails which were important, which were closing for business, and which were going to come back and backfire on her with customer complaints. So we took all of that off her hands and basically sorted out her system so that she saw the urgent stuff first and then the secondary stuff and all the stuff that she'd subscribed to, and then thinking, why did I subscribe to that? But it's just come in the inbox again. We unsubscribed from all of them, sometimes more than once, because sometimes they keep on coming, even
Mhm.
though they shouldn't. And we devised a system for her that literally there was no more ever than 10 emails in her inbox. And even then, we could get it down to about 5. And she trusted, this is the thing, you've got to trust the fact that you person's looking after that, they're not going to miss anything. And we were there communicating with her so that she knew when she traveled overseas, long haul, she wasn't going to be faced with 250 emails that had suddenly come through into her inbox when she switched on. So, massive difference for that lady.
Mhm.
She suddenly felt that she could be with her present with her children as opposed to having them and looking at her phone, or don't talk to mummy now because I'm on the laptop. She could be present with the people that mattered in her life, and that included her team, that included her leadership team. So her results
Mhm.
have gone through the roof because ultimately she knows that that side of life is taken care of. So that's just one small thing that we can help with. But the small things sometimes are the big deal. They're the straw that break the camel's back. So we're there to make sure that that camel's back is really strong.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even when you said that many emails, I actually felt it physically, like I couldn't breathe. I'm like, oh, I to and like you said, there could be things in there that are urgent and timely where she's going to lose business or lose reputation if they're not handled properly. And oh, just to not have to go through all those emails is the thought of it is so relieving.
Yeah. The team member that was working on it went, oh, hi. I
Yeah.
think they went, uh-oh, this is me now. But their job, that's what they love. He's got himself really into it. And he said, don't we now I'm going through the emails. He was like, yay. We love a challenge. We do love a challenge. And then on another side as well, I have a client who took us on board for LinkedIn lead generation. We don't use any automation. We do it all by hand. It's very bespoke so that there's no spammy things going out. And literally, they were worried about where the business was going to come from. I mean, it was make or break time. And in about a couple of months, they'd managed to get 3 really good contracts from the LinkedIn leads that we got coming through. And it was all congruent with their voice and their tone. And everybody, was very happy with the way in which we did it. So with that, we're not just a scattergun. We're very precise as to who we target for the best possible outcome. But I swear to goodness that because we do it with love, and love is a very, very strong, very, very secure emotion. All of my people, we work off a sphere, as I said, that's one of the things we do. Every voice is heard, every person matters, every opinion counts, is that we're only as ever strong as the weakest link in our business, that they take this on with love in their heart. And I tell you what, it comes across somehow in that messaging that they give out to people or the work they're doing on emails, anything that we seem to touch, because everybody does it with a passion and love in their heart. I think there's a resonance there that people go, oh, that sounds nice. Oh, that sounds good. I'll respond to that positively, or I'll respond to that at all, because a lot of people don't respond to anything. And we
Mhm.
get those results because my team are wonderful, wonderful people. And they're always there thinking, how can we add value? How much can we be proactive? If there's a thing that we've thought about, how can we share that with our client? And that's really what we want, is the relationship with them. We're not transactional in that way. So we build up that relationship. And often what people say to us is, can I make sure that I have so and so because Ikra or Hassan, because we've got that relationship with them? And it's absolutely, yes, absolutely, because we know that that is real strong bond with our client. It's lovely to see. It really is.
Beautiful. Well, if people wanted to connect with you, find you, this is the part where we kind of talked about some of your services, but this is the part where you tell us where to find you, what services you're offering now, if there's anything different than what we just talked about, and what you're looking for next.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Behind me, there's some details there. My email address is db for Debra Blackman at vcentually, that's V for Victor, IESS for Sierra, ENTIALLY.com. I'm sure you're going to put details in as well in the show notes. Please do be there. I won't bore everybody to death with everything else, but I'm found on Linkbook and LinkedIn and Facebook. So we do all this wonderful administration, business development, content, etc. The one thing I've realized as well is podcasting. Anybody's interested, it really took me by surprise how it's elevated our social standing and our heads and shoulders, the go-to people to be in our industry very quickly, but also to be able to monetize that podcast as a very specific way, which because of my experience, I'm able to help people and train them in that. And I would say if anybody's interested, don't think that, oh, everybody's got a podcast, because believe me, they haven't. But if you can get the right guests onto your show who could be the potential clients of yours, now there's a whole area there that really is worth exploration. And I can absolutely say that it's worked for us. And I'm very happy to share some tips and tricks. And if anybody'd like that training, I'm very much happy to do that for them.
All right. Well, thank you so much. So now I have a personal question for you. What gives you the most happiness and fulfillment in your life at this point?
Very good question. Giving and serving others. Um, the more I give, the more I serve every day, the more wonderful things happen. That it just, you, you just couldn't understand what happens to me every single day from that giving and that serving of others without the expectation of anything coming back, money or accolades or, oh, isn't that nice, a compliment. I don't do it for that. I do it to just genuinely put it out there with people and genuinely to see, how can I serve, how can I give, how can I contribute, how can I add value. And that's a very different answer than what I would have given to you a year ago. But the fact is that once I've realized what my life is all about is giving and serving, I'm very successful because of it, because it does come back in an abundant format. And money is a wonderful thing. It's got great energy when used in the right way, it can help so many people. So, yes, I mean, I am very commercial, but that's not the thing. It's not about us getting more clients. It's how many more people can we help? How many people can we serve at a level that blows them away, that takes their breath away, that delights them and overjoys them? And that's what makes us special. That's what makes me special as a person. And that's why I'm so grateful to be on your wonderful podcast, Dr. Kimberley, to be able to give me this voice to reach people, to say that's what I can do.
Yes, I am so honored to have you on the podcast. And thank you for being very vulnerable and sharing your story and, also your services because there's thousands of people that need your service. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It has been a real honor and a privilege. And I would say to anybody, if Dr. Kimberley asks you to be on her podcast, jump at the chance, because Dr. Kimberley, you are a brilliant interviewer. You've made me feel so special. You've got a lovely warmth about you. And I can just feel the love from your viewers and your listeners and from yourself as well. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And I have one more question before we finish. What is your best advice on living an incredible, amazing life?
Go do what you're most scared of. Just get that courage and go do it. Because as we know, we're only really aware of one life and it goes by pretty quickly. So just do the things that you think, oh, I can't do that. Just go do it because it just has tremendous results at the end of it.
All right. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Kimberley, and everybody that's listening and watching this. Thank you so much too.
Yep. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, my darling, you take care. Love to you and love to your family as well.